technical difficulties, but we've worked them out. But, maybe we shouldn't do anything for the first half hour anyway, because United don't play for the first half of games, and we'll see in a half hour.
Yeah, hello and welcome back to United Happy Hour. It always feels, Pauly, nowadays, since we've been doing one a week. It's such a long time since I've seen you, but this one feels longer because I don't feel like there's been as much football. Obviously, United had a free week last week, so we had the Burnley game, and the only game we've had since we did a show, Pauly, was obviously the Leeds game at the weekend, which sort of came and went without much notice, to be honest. But I think you're right what you said at the top of the show there, Pauly, about why should we bother until maybe the last half an hour, because I think there's three certainties in life, isn't there? Death, taxes, and that United will play well in the second half of games, especially this season. So interesting. But let's have a quick chat about that Leeds game, Pauly. I mean, obviously 0-0. A lot of people will say maybe not a lot to talk about, not a lot going on, but there has been some people trying to make talking points from that game around selection and around player performance. One thing I'll just say about it is that I don't think it was as bad a performance by United as a lot of people sort of made out. I just felt that it was a situation where Leeds had learnt from their mistakes from the first game, and it just seemed to be that United looked like they got in promising positions, but whenever they got near the box or the final action or the shot, it just didn't seem to land for them, did it?
No, you know what it was? This was a game against West Ham. This was a game against Newcastle. This was the game against Brighton to an extent. This was a game against a low block team. And United looked exactly like they look when they play against a low block team without Paul Pogba in the team. It was Bruno Fernandes and Luke Shaw. You need to do everything. We're not going to be able to get the ball to you quickly. The reason it didn't look like that totally was because Leeds were usually, when we play that low block team, they just back off of us. They sit and they say, you establish the pace, you establish the tempo, and then we struggle to do that. We never really get going. We play slow. Leeds were still being frenetic and running and bringing that intensity, and we matched that, but they were still just dropping off. What I just thought what was impressive was when Leeds did press us high and Wan-Bissaka got by them or Shaw got by them, and we started running into space, they still had just a million men back. So it was frenetic and there was running and it was high energy, but this was just United versus Burnley at a faster pace. And that's why we struggled to break them down, because we had our not creative midfield in there, and your forwards, Rashford is, he hasn't been as creative since he's been injured. Calvin Phillips went everywhere that Bruno went. I don't even know if Calvin Phillips went back to the Leeds dressing room at halftime. He probably went to the toilet with Bruno.
Yeah.
Mason Greenwood's not a creative player, and I thought Mason Greenwood played very well, but the lack of creativity showed. And
I think you're spot on, Pauly. And I think, look, I don't want to downplay Bielsa's tactics, but I think in a nutshell, what Bielsa tries to do against most teams and what he tried to do at Old Trafford is essentially it's just man marking every single player on the pitch. That's how they do it, especially when the ball breaks down in set plays, like throw-ins. If you look at the wide pitch view, essentially every Leeds player is marking one United player. And I think in the first game, Pauly, at Old Trafford, United just got the better of most of their one-on-one battles, and that's why they scored the goals that they scored. That's why the game looked comfortable. Unfortunately, at times in this game, well, certainly that first half when Leeds did play more that way, I think United didn't quite win those one-on-one battles like they did in the game at Old Trafford. And in the second half, like you said, Pauly, like one of the comments says there, they definitely dropped off a little bit, didn't they? And they sort of played slightly different to how they have been all season, really. So, again, that's credit to maybe United and the way they played this season, also Ollie and his tactics.
Yeah, and there's also a stark difference is in that first game, Leeds had 59% of the possession, and they got forward, etc. And that lulled their midfielders and everything to get forward. And then Bruno he pulled Calvin Phillips everywhere. Bruno went everywhere but the middle in that game because that pulled Calvin Phillips out of the middle. You want your defensive midfielder to be sitting in front of your center backs, but if he's man marking Bruno and Bruno's not there, then he can't do that. So Bruno pulled him this every which way and the other, and then McTominay and Fred ran into that space and took advantage of it very well. In this game, United had 54% of the possession. So Leeds, their midfielders didn't get caught pushing up the pitch. And therefore, when Bruno went every which way, this way and the other, he mostly just stayed high. McTominay and Fred couldn't get themselves free at all. United targeted McTominay for 26 passes, which he averages 48 per game, which is like the third lowest on the team. Only Wan-Bissaka, Daniel James, and Edinson Cavani get targeted less than McTominay. 26. They targeted Pogba 17 times, and he only played 15 minutes. He couldn't get open, and Fred averages about 60. They only targeted him about 40. So United didn't have a midfield, which really hurt them. And then with Bruno not operating in that 10 spot because he wants to pull Calvin Phillips out of position, you're getting Mason Greenwood dropping deep to get the ball, which is something Martial does very well, but something that we haven't seen Mason Greenwood ever do. So it was very good to see that. He did a good job with that. But then he'd turn on the ball and you ask him to be creative and it shows the limitations that are there. Now, Mason Greenwood, this isn't a knock on Mason Greenwood. He's been in fantastic form recently. You are seeing so much growth. It's just a reminder, even as he's growing, there's still more that needs to be done. Yeah. And he's just not the finished product yet. So he didn't have a good game on Sunday. Does that mean I don't think he's going to have a good game on Thursday or the following Sunday? No, I don't think that. I think that he's going to have a not good game every so often, but that's fine because he's still going to come back and have good games.
I think Leeds is one of those games as well, Paulie. The longer they stay in the league and the longer that Bielsa stays, there's rumours that he's going to sign a new 2-year deal. I think that's the key for me, Paulie, in terms of they will always be this team that you will have to sort of prepare differently for. They kind of play differently to any other team. I don't really know. There's not that many comparisons, I don't think, in the league in terms of Leeds. And that's why I thought it was ironic that United, the first time they had a free week, was actually preparing for Leeds, where I think you actually will really benefited from a free week. Because if there is a team where you do have to do things slightly different, it does seem like Leeds United this year. But look, Paulie, I just want to, before we move on to look at what's on social media, because we've got plenty to get through.
And to follow up on your point, I think it's funny that United won 6-2 at Old Trafford because at no point did Marcelo Bielsa be like, this isn't working. Let's pack it in. And everybody praised him. Oh, it's so great that he stuck to his one. And then he comes out and does that, which was, oh, we're going to sit in a deep block. The only difference between this and Mourinho is we're still going to run around frantically. So it looks like we're doing things, but we're not. Leeds never came close. No. Leeds never came close to United's goal, which is partially on United. This is United's most defensive team. If you had to pick a defensive 11, this would be it. Maybe you swap Martial out for Greenwood. If everybody's fit, this is that 11. And so it's not that surprising, but also, like I said, with Leeds not getting the ball, they weren't committing men forward either. So it was partially United keeping Leeds away, the way that they've kept Burnley away from goal, they've kept Brighton away from goal, they kept Tottenham away from goal, and it was partially Leeds just not even threatening. So in that regard, it was great. United controlled this entire game. At halftime, I genuinely believe we'd go on to win the game. It was only the last 10 minutes where I was like, we probably aren't, because we never picked up in the second half. Against Spurs and Brighton and Burnley, we picked up in the second half. Even at halftime, I was like, we haven't created anything from open play. All of our chances have been from set pieces. And in the second half, it never really picked up. But I never really thought that this was in danger of being lost. And as you just said, we had an hour or a whole week to think about this game and prepare for it. And I think what Ollie showed us was that this was not the game he was preparing for.
No, I think that's a really good point, because, like I say, especially in that second half, like I say, they did drop. It was a very different lead side, and I think we've lauded Bielsa, and look, it's not just us, Paulie. Pep Guardiola, as you asked Pep Guardiola about Bielsa, and he'll give you his thoughts. I think it says, without wanting to sound like an Ollie sexual, as people say, or an Ollie in or anything like that, if you ask Bielsa this season about who he's probably found it tougher, I think he would give Ollie a lot of credit, because I don't think there's many coaches and many teams out there that make Bielsa change the way that he plays, Paulie. I mean, he like you said, he didn't do it at Old Trafford, but he certainly made sure he changed something for this game, and I think that says a lot.
He was similar against City, although playing 60 odd minutes with 10 men sort of forced him to sit. But they only took 2 shots and they scored on them. In this case, they took 6. They didn't come close to scoring on any of them.
Yeah.
I just ultimately what it came down to was Ollie did that. The one criticism I have of Ollie is he did that thing that he is prone to do. And that is he basically said, this worked last time. Let's do it again. It almost as if it was inconceivable that Bielsa might change. Well, and he picked that team against.
He didn't think it was going to be 0-0 either, did he? You know what I mean? He didn't, he said, didn't he? I guarantee it won't be 0-0. So.
But we always say, whatever Ollie says to the media, take with a grain of salt. And
yeah. He
picked that team of basically this worked last time. And that annoyed me especially because so often we see that when it worked last time, the other manager makes a change and then it doesn't not work, but it doesn't work either. Furthermore, always the one that when we went top of the league after beating Burnley, always the one that said, well, when you get to the top of Mount Everest or Kilimanjaro, you have to keep moving. If you just sit, you'll freeze. Yeah. And then he does this thing where it's, this worked last time, so let me just run it back. But then you look at the way he substituted things, and we're not going to talk about he always waits too long to change the game because we've discussed this before. We've refuted it. That is patently not true. And you don't have to look any further than last week against Burnley, 0-0 at halftime. He brings on Cavani because this was working, but it's not working. We need more. Yeah. This week, 0-0, same situation. It's working, but it's not working. He doesn't make any change. Pug was out there at halftime warming up, but he doesn't bring him on until there's 15 minutes left, and then he waits until there's 4 minutes left to bring on Cavani. That told you right there, this wasn't about I wasn't thinking about this Leeds match. I'm thinking about Thursday. I'm thinking about Roma. And the goal was keep Pogba fit, keep Cavani fit. Don't make them play too much. United entered this game 7 points clear of Leicester for second in the table. It's not even a top 4 thing, second place.
Yeah.
Ollie was like, if we get a draw out of this game, that's fine. That's all we need.
I came out the game thinking, as much as I was disappointed we didn't get the win, but the draw wasn't a bad result. We'd seen Liverpool obviously drop points earlier in the weekend. We'd seen Chelsea had beaten West Ham. Whether you see West Ham as a genuine threat anyway, I'm not sure. But yeah, I just felt there were certain results as well that also meant that this 0-0 wasn't so bad, Paulie. But just before we do move on, I just want to ask you about the selection. Obviously, there was some raised eyebrows initially about Pogba, but that sort of backs up what you were saying just there, that the eyes weren't really on this game. He's thinking about Thursday. We also, like we were saying just before we come on air, Paulie, we have to understand now that obviously that he's going through a Ramadan period at the moment as well, which is obviously going to affect his performance and when you can pick him in selection. It was interesting last night, actually, I only mentioned this because it might be relevant to Thursday, that the referee paused the game for Wesley Fofana, who plays for Leicester, to take on some fluids once the sun had gone down. And the only reason I mentioned that, Paul, is because the kickoff tomorrow on Thursday night will be similar to the kickoff, obviously, in the Leicester game last night. And it'll be interesting to see whether Paul's similar, because I think it's absolutely guaranteed that Paul will start that game. But,
Kouyaté was also observing Ramadan. It was agreed before the game started by both teams that this would happen, which is fine. Look, if you have a complaint about that, I mean, you need to reevaluate your priority. We've already crossed the threshold of water breaks. They are very much a part of football now, even if they're not part of every week football. Yeah. So to stop the game at a stoppage that comes if the ball goes out of play, to say we're going to take a minute here so that this player can eat, considering that he hasn't eaten all day and he is still going out there and trying to perform for you, the fan. Yeah, we could let him have a drink.
Look, away from Pogba, Paulie, this is an interesting comment here from Aditya. Didn't understand the team selection, to be honest. You either go gung-ho in the league and try and win all 6 Premier League games, or you rest most of your key players for Europa. We kind of did neither. And I understand where Aditya's coming from there, because there was players who you think are equally as important as Paul Pogba who did play that game against Leeds. I mean, if he's going to rest the likes of Pogba, were you surprised that maybe other players didn't get rested as well, Paulie? Was this an opportunity, as the follow-up comment says, to maybe give Diallo a game? I know we've talked about giving Diallo a game since he come in January and he doesn't. And VDB, Van der Beek the same, Paulie. Were you surprised that actually it was only really Pogba who was a notable name that missed at the weekend?
No, I don't have a problem with the team selection at all. Other than when I saw it, it was we're doing the same thing again. And I had some question marks about that. And then as soon as you watch 6-7 minutes of the game and you saw Leeds were just sitting back and there's not going to be space to counterattack. And suddenly you're like, this is not a game for the McFred pivot or Dan James out there. It's one or the other. You could do James and McTominay Pogba, or you could do, you need something else.
Yeah.
Diallo looks like a middle school kid still. He is very small. England is very physical. This match was absurdly physical. You cannot put Diallo in there to make his English debut or his Premier League debut in that match. It would, if he doesn't play well, that has the opportunity to shatter his confidence. But you also can't fully rest everyone. You just gave Rashford had a week of rest. And I understand 2 weeks of rest would be great. But Rashford was played really well against Burnley, and he played really well against Leicester, or against Leeds. So I understand he's not 100%, but he doesn't look as hurt as he did hobbling into that international break. You can't rest everyone, because then you're essentially sending the message to the rest of your team. We don't care about this game, and we don't. Who cares? And go see what you do. But if you don't win, it's not going to get the best response out of your bench. And this always bothers me. It always bothers me in the cup games when we do this. When we go out to Luton Town and you put Donny van de Beek out there with McTominay, Fred, Juan Mata, Jesse Lingard, and Odi Nigalo. And it's, what are you really learning here? Yeah. Because it doesn't matter what you're playing Donny van de Beek with. If you want Donny van de Beek to be a legitimate rotational option that you can use him to rest Bruno, you need to see him play with Rashford and Martial and the other players that he would be playing with, to put him out there with players that don't mix with him, but also in a real game, he's not going to play with them. It doesn't do much. So no, I don't think you can make wholesale changes. You can't.
Sorry, carry on, Paulie.
If you're rested, look, they rested Cavani because we know you got to manage Cavani's minutes. He's on fire right now. He's going to be a very important piece. But so we're going to need him in the Europa League. I think he's guaranteed to start against Roma.
Paulie, it's about players who know how to navigate rounds like that as well. We're talking about a player here who, navigated semi-finals and quarterfinals and big games over 2 legs, So it's not so much the quality, it's just their experience on the field as well, isn't it? And I think that's what, United are really wanting here, isn't it? You know what I'm saying? So, Cavani's going to bring that experience. I just think you also have to think that until this is mathematically impossible to win the league, you're not going to get away with it with sections of fans either, are you, Paul?
Right. Imagine if he rotates the squad fully. Imagine that, and you drop points. Look, everybody trashed him for rotating the squad against Leicester and bowing out of the FA Cup. So it does. Yeah. It goes both ways, and he's got to play the players that he feels gives him a chance to win. And he's also got to manage for the long term. So you're resting Cavani, so you're starting Greenwood. So you're looking at that team and going, well, Greenwood doesn't win headers, and Dan James is in there, and Marcus Rashford doesn't even contest for headers. So how will Alex Tellez help this team in any way, shape, or form if all he could do is cross? You need Luke Shaw out there. Maybe I would assume Luke Shaw is going to play on Thursday, but if you did need to mix Alex Tellez in one of these games, it would be against Roma, probably, in one of the 2 legs. Yeah. Maybe that depends on what happens in the first leg. If you win 2-0 at home, you could go to Roma and play Tellez for 60 or 70 minutes. But either way, you need to put out a team that that gives you a reasonable chance to win the game. And we're seeing so much of this in the last few days of, he needs to rest the players and rotate the squad more in these games. No, this is not the time of the season for that. And I understand they are tired. But look, United have the data on this and whether they can keep running. And no one has played more than Harry Maguire. And Wan-Bissaka is right behind him. They didn't look bad on Sunday. They didn't look tired. Wan-Bissaka was the best player on the field. Didn't look like he was like his legs were going. The time to rotate is early on in the season, so you can get everybody their minutes and get everybody acclimated. And what happened? And he did that. And what happened? United were inconsistent and they started games slow, and everybody yelled at him for that. He said, "You need to pick an 11 and stick with it." This is the business end of the season. This is when you gotta go with your players.
Yeah, no, I agree, Paulie. Can you hear me? I might be.
I can hear you. I can hear you. It's a little choppy, but I can hear you.
I can't get the screen anymore. I've got one stuck on there. I think StreamYard's played up a bit tonight. We have had some technical issues. Here we go. It's insane here about does it matter whether you finish second or third? Living in unfortunately, to a lot of people, it does matter. It doesn't matter to me. I think Paul very much the same. But there are some out there that will have a massive different view on whether he finishes second this season or third. It might only be one place to most of us, but we know for a fact, Paulie, that there's fans out there that, it will make a real difference this season if you finish second or third. So, yeah, I think because Paulie, we've got stuff to talk about what's big on media. I think we should get what's going on. Absolutely brilliant. Look, let's just start off, Paulie, with I suppose the sort of break news that broke yesterday about Eric contract. I found this quite an interesting story. I've sort of tried to converse with people about this and get conversation going, and a lot of people are like, no big deal. Eric Bailly signs a contract, but I think there's an interesting story behind all this, Paulie, and it's an interesting deal that United's done because I think this sort of looks at what they may look to do in the summer now. I think that has an impact on that and where they may look to spend their money, but also, Eric Bailly and the player that we've had since he joined the club in 2016, I think it was. And obviously, his fitness issues. So, first of all, what you're surprised about this, probably because the stuff that I've been reading around Eric Bailly suggested that he wasn't happy with his role at United. All the indications were probably wasn't going to sign a new contract this summer. I think United might look to sell, but he has signed a new contract. First of all, I can't hear you, maybe Paul muted. No, can't hear you, mate. I can't, unless everyone else can, but I can't. I can't hear anything. No, still can't hear anything, mate. No, I can't hear you. I'll come off. You keep talking. Everybody else might be able to hear, but I can't, mate. No, I don't think it's us, mate. I think it's Paulie's. Yeah, no, it's Paulie's got issues. I think again he's had to just drop out. Yeah. Sorry guys, we've got a little bit of technical issues here that we're just trying to sort out. I think I'm just having a conversation here, assuming that you probably can't hear me either, but I think you can hear me. But yeah, I mean, obviously, let's talk about renewing Bailly's contract till Paulie gets back. What's your thoughts on it? I mean, interesting, really, that United have gone for this option with obviously his injury record. My concern personally is with Eric that I feel he's given some good performances to the team and he's done well, but it's a little bit concerning that could this be another Phil Jones situation where United bring in, give a player a contract extension here that may not be fit in the years to come, and then you have a difficulty getting rid of him. Paulie, I'm not quite sure whether I can still hear you. Do you want to try speaking to us?
I think you might be able to hear me.
We've got you now, mate. We've got you. There you are.
The audio is going to be crap.
Look, it's just going to be one of those days by the looks of it, Paulie. But if you can, Paulie, I know it's difficult because I think you probably said quite a lot there before you realised we couldn't hear you. What's your thoughts on this Bailly contract, and does it make sense to you?
Yeah, well, when I heard it, it was a little surprising because we had heard for 2 years now. We have been hearing that Bailly kind of wanted to leave. We've been hearing two sides. Bailly talked the world of Solskjaer, and then we'd also hear rumors that he couldn't stand him and he thought that Solskjaer made him feel like he had no place here and that he wanted to leave, which doesn't really add up to everything else. I think it's a good deal for United because it's only 2 years. It's not a Phil Jones situation where it's 4 or 5 years. But more importantly,
I was just saying that, Paulie. Sorry, I don't normally cut you off there, but I was just saying my concern when I saw this is: do you have a situation where if his injuries do come back next year, are you stuck with a player that you can't play on a decent sized contract and can't get out the club? But actually, it's interesting you say there, like you say, it literally is only a 2-year deal when you factor in he still had another year left on his contract. So signs again there that the club are learning, and obviously with the new structure that they've got there, maybe a sensible deal that they're doing here.
Right, and think about it this way. When we gave Phil Jones that contract, we had Jones, we had Smalling, we had Bailly, we had Marcos Rojo, we had Twanzebe was out on loan having a great season, so we knew he was coming in. So that's 5 guys right there. And what did we want that summer? We had wanted a center back. Oh, and we had Lindelof. That's 6 guys. We wanted a center back that summer, and the next summer we went out and bought one. So suddenly you have so many center backs. Right now, fans want a center back. It's not as clear that Ollie does. And you only have Maguire, Lindelof, Twanzebe. Tayden Menji, it's already been he's hurt right now, but it's already been reported that he's going to go back out on loan next year. So he's not really in the mix either. So you need someone there. If you let Bailly go, you got to sign someone, which is a fee and bonuses, etc. It costs money. Money is at a premium right now, and we have other areas of need. Now, even if you were just signing a 3rd center back or a 4th center back, someone at that level, the other difference is Phil Jones was not playing well when we gave him this contract. Eric Bailly has been very good this season. He's gotten hurt twice, 2 or 3 times already, but he's also had an extended fitness. He had he started 4 games in a row, which is the first time he's done that in 4 years. So it's good to keep him around to be that 3rd or 4th. Look, all season fans have been saying Lindelof needs to be dropped. Bailly needs to. We need to be starting Bailly more. So in that case, you
can't loan. When he stays,
in that case, then why are you worried about losing him? Or you should be worried about losing him. You want to keep him if you think he's better than Lindelof. It's really an issue of you need that coverage at center back. I don't think it's 2 years is fine. And think about it. In 2 years, that's when Tayden Menji is either the guy or not.
Yeah, exactly. Look, Paulie, I just think as well, look, I don't want to sort of downplay anything, but I just think the thing with Bailly as well is, and I don't think you can underestimate this, especially under Ollie, is the character of the man. A lot of the things that we hear is that he's a good guy, Paulie. He's a great guy to have around the squad. He's got quite good leadership qualities as well. I think a lot of people probably won't look at Bailly and think, oh, there you go, a leader, but you listen to a lot of players in the squad, and he's very good. He's got a very good relationship with a lot of the players in the team. He's a popular member of that squad, and like I say, under a manager like Solskjaer, I think that's important. He looks at the person as much what he can give him off the field as what he can give him on the field as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, and ultimately, you need that player there. You need that coverage. Bailly has been good, but think about it this way: it adds an element. If you let Bailly leave, you need to replace him. You can't go into the season with 3 center backs. Liverpool did that. Yeah. Look at what happened to them. And I don't expect a situation where you have 4 or 5 center backs hurt, but even if you do, that's solid. It gives an academy kid a chance. That's how academy, especially center backs, are going to get their chance. They're not going to be given a run in the team because, oh, you've been playing well. They're only going to be given a run in the team because we have nobody else. Yeah. The fact that you've re-signed Bailly, if you genuinely believe he can contribute, it reevaluates where your priorities are this summer, and that's good because United need a defensive midfielder far more than they need a center back. Maguire and Lindelof are both very good. They are not the perfect pair. They're both individually better than they are as a pair, and they do complement each other in ways, but they also expose each other in ways. But they have been operating this season completely exposed to the elements. If you give them a defender, a midfielder who protects them, you'll see a much better defense. I mean, United, when Wan-Bissaka, Shaw, Maguire, and Lindelof start as the back four, they're conceding half a goal a game. So for all that our defense is an issue, it's not as bad as people say. The issue is, as Mimic says, is that midfield spot. And Declan Rice would be perfect because if you do get injuries, he could drop back into midfield, and Matic could play a game or two. You need that. So addressing the center back now, if that means we're going to go after a right wing and a defensive midfielder and actually fill the holes in the team, that's very good, because I wrote about this about a month ago. The fact of the matter is, for the last 5 years, we have been filling striker, center back, attacking midfielder. And we've done that 1 year. Then the next year, we signed the same position: striker, center back, attacking midfielder, strike. We're addressing the same holes in the team year after year after year. And the other holes that have been rotting away have gone unchecked. So if we address those holes now, that makes us a much more complete team. And then in a year or 2 years or however long, you come back and say, okay, now let's upgrade on what we got here. You're in much better shape.
No, I agree with you. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, I did raise my eyebrows at first, but I think it's one of those deals where you have to sit and think about it. And for me, it makes a lot of sense. And to be honest with you, if that means that they do then invest that money in a CDM or the right winger or even a number 9, but I mean, the rumours has been now that actually the focus will now switch to having that centre forward. That news is not going away. That United really want a striker this summer, is it, Paulie? I mean, I see it inconceivable that they would be able to, 1, afford a Haaland, and 2, look at someone like Harry Kane because of his age and his injuries, like we've talked about before on this, Paulie. But it really is not going away about United wanting a striker. So yes, you're saying forget centre-back for a CDM, but you do actually wonder whether the club may now actually get this striker signing in as well. That's another position they may look at. Maybe, but I still... I don't see them spending big on Haaland this year. I don't see anybody spending big on Haaland. Look, we know nobody's got money. Last week exposed that big time. That's why no one's got money. No one's got money. And if any, and what came out is that the Glazers and John Henry are very much like the current transfer market, the way it is, paying these fees for players is unsustainable. And they're 100% right about that. Have they gone about it in the wrong way? Yes, but they're 100% right. It's unsustainable. But there's no reason for Erling Haaland to leave Dortmund this year. And he's not going to, because no one's going to come and offer that money, especially when his release clause is for much less next year. And we've discussed this before. With the smaller release clause, that allows Mino Raiola and Haaland's father to be like, oh, no. You're still paying up the wazoo for him. It's just that we're getting a bigger slice of the pie now. So I don't see them spending huge sums of money on a striker. Now, there was an interesting tweet that I saw, I think on Tuesday or something, that said, lost in all this Super League talk is that on Monday, a South American journalist confirmed Cavani will be leaving. And I was like,
or it's like it keeps getting forgotten. I'm like, forgotten. I'm like, I haven't even heard that news. There's been so much Super League talk. I never trust it. As much as I don't trust anything that comes out of Europe, when it comes to transfers and gossip and etc., it's all I trust even less when it comes out of South America.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're being fed by players' families, I think, in South America, aren't they? And they're being, and clubs that would love to sign these kind of players. Boca Juniors will love the idea of being linked with the Cavani and maybe love the idea of signing for them one day. So why wouldn't you be briefed on things like that, Pauly? But look, let's move it on again, Pauly, because I know you said in the briefing that you sent me before the show, you did want to touch on, the amount of games that United have played over the last 2 years, Pauly. Obviously, we've gone quite deep. Well, we're going deep in the Europa League this year. We've gone deep in the domestic cup competition. We know Ollie's record was semi-finals. We went deep in the Europa League last year as well, but obviously the nature of it was slightly different because of the COVID and everything. But United, you probably got the numbers there, Paulie. They've played a lot of games over the last 2 years, and well, I'll let you talk about it because obviously it was you that wanted to make mention of it, mate.
Yeah, it's been buzzing around the social medias this morning, really for no other reason than United Arena just tweeted about it. He said it's just been on my mind, and he's a massive account, and it's obviously going to get a lot of people talking. Just talking about how we've been too good to lose early in the cups, which means we're going far and advancing, and long term it's not good. And he mentions there are positives, but I think if we just focus on the league, Europe, and the FA Cup, that'd be better. You'd get more rest. Yeah. That doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form. If you want to go for 3 cups, the 3 cups to go for are the league, Europe, and the League Cup, because especially this year where we played 2 League Cup games in August, and then we didn't play the League Cup again until December, and then a midweek night in January. That's all fine. That's not going to kill you. It's when the schedule gets tough and the FA Cup starts and you're playing, and then you're playing those games in the midweek games. But ultimately, all right, so the Crystal Palace match got moved to midweek. That's the only midweek that United got added. They haven't lost anything. You could say, all right, maybe if they went out in the third round, then they would have had that weekend against Liverpool. That weekend would have been free, and they could spend more time on training. But this is the thing, like when people say, oh, they're playing in too many games and the players are tired now. Well, they're not, because is it a problem how does it affect Bruno Fernandes that Jesse Lingard and Odion Igalo and Juan Mata and Fred McTominay and Brandon Williams and Diogo Dalot played against Luton Town? That's the rest of your team. Marcus Rashford is not getting tired sitting on the bench for that. And that's the thing, is Bruno Fernandes hasn't started a single FA Cup match. When else are you going to play these guys? This is where they have to shine. And look, United played Brighton's B team in the League Cup. We played our B team. It was Mata again and McTominay getting that early goal. And we won with our reserves. And then against Everton, Bruno did start against Everton, but Rashford and Martial did not. Against City, that's the semifinal. Okay, I get it. And in the league, in the FA Cup, you got that early draw against Liverpool, and that was tough. But Bruno didn't start. Against West Ham, we still put out a bunch of reserves. And yes, Rashford played in it, but like these players want to play in these games. First of all, they grew up watching cup football. They want to participate, but for the most part, I don't think that's what's killed this team. And they also have appearance bonuses in their contracts as well. People mustn't forget. I know it might sound trivia, but a player might miss out on a bonus from 1 or 2 games. So if it means playing a cup match again, he's not going to have a problem with that, is he? Really, Paulie? Someone commented on that here earlier. Was the 5 minute? This is again from Leeds on Sunday. 5 minute cameo. I actually thought Van de Beek should have played more, but I understand why he didn't. But yeah, Donny Van de Beek ain't complaining that he got an appearance bonus for that. He's not complaining that Solskjaer brought him on in the 89th minute against City when they were down 2-0, and he gets a nice semifinal appearance bonus. He's not complaining about that. This is the whole purpose of having a big squad and United. And I think this is also part of when Solskjaer took the job, he said no. And he talked about that cultural reset and establishing that culture, which we have now seen. That culture is very much ingrained in this team. That never say die attitude. Look at the way they play and the way that they are running teams off the pitch in the second half. And the way that they have played more games than everybody. And Leeds are a fantastic second half team. And United didn't give Leeds anything in the second half. They've been the more fit team in the second half 5 weeks in a row now.
Yeah, and it's usually Leeds, like Ollie said in his post-match, Leeds are a team that have run many teams over in the second half. Look, the Man City game that they had a couple of weeks ago where they won it in the last minute is a bit of an anomaly, but they thought, they were with City till the end of that. We're talking about
they've won 3 in a row coming in. They've won 3 out of their last 4, or they're unbeaten in 5, I think. But that culture is ingrained there, and you saw it last week with the players having Solskjaer's back. With the situation with the Super League, the players going to war with Ed Woodward about that culture's in there. And part of that culture is when he came in, he said, no, we're Manchester United. We compete for every trophy. And look, it's one thing when if you draw Liverpool in the first round of the League Cup and you go, well, I'm going to put in Bruno and everything because I need to get a win. I mean, look, everybody's been saying this year, what is progress? Oh, well, they're not going to win the title, so they have to do X and win a trophy. Well, then you can't punt one of those trophies away. But also, if you put your reserves out there and they win, you can't complain about that.
Bonus, isn't it? Absolute bonus. Paulie, look,
what else are you supposed to do? Say, tell the league, sorry, we're not going to participate in the League Cup?
Yeah, exactly.
Withdraw from the FA Cup? I just don't see it really hurting the team. And someone responded to me today and said, well, last year, if you go for everything, sometimes you end up with nothing. Like, look at what happened last year. No, well, last year the cups were put on hold, or the Europa League was put on hold. They went for the league, and yes, they got tired at the end of it. They were not crawling, but they stopped sprinting and were more jogging across the finish line. They still went from 5th with 2 games to go to 3rd. They still finished better than their rivals. Then they went to the Europa League 2 weeks later. Yeah. They put out a complete reserve team that obviously was very bored holding a 5-0 lead against Lask. They played Copenhagen off the pitch. They just couldn't score. And then they played Sevilla off the pitch. Sevilla was the best performance that this team put in post-lockdown. They just got unlucky.
Yeah,
that had nothing to do with tired and burnout. So again, this is the business end of the season, and you want to win trophies. Yeah, you're going to have games add up around now, but I don't think that's a bad thing especially when Van de Beek's been playing in these games and Tellez has been playing, and you've tried to limit Rashford's minutes a bit. It would just be a lot easier if Martial was scoring this year, and if Mason Greenwood was scoring prior to 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic point you made, Paul, because obviously I don't look at the numbers anywhere near as much as someone like yourself does, but I find, it is a long time since I've watched this team recently and thought that looked a leggy performance, that it looked a kind of performance where, it looked a tired performance. I can honestly say I haven't really, with my eyes, I haven't sort of cast that judgment, which is a good thing. And you do wonder sometimes, Paulie, whether, having the full week at this stage actually does you more harm than good, because it's almost that the players have got themselves into a rhythm of playing every couple of days, how they and they get used to that, and sometimes a break can be harder sometimes to pick up the pace of the game, I think. And I think that's why this team looked leggy towards the end of last season, because that huge gap that they had in the middle there, Paulie, because of COVID that couldn't be helped, everybody was the same. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, that should be great. They've had a chance to rest. But actually, it seemed to go the other way. And, this was a team that was starting to look tired by the end of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, I actually got worried about this year, because when we got to that point of the season, I said to you, look, we are X amount of points above where we were last year. The difference is last year we paused, and then we were so good during Project Restart, but we got our players fit again. And at the time, Pogba was still hurt and Rashford was hobbling. And all we're getting this year is a 1 week international break, which isn't a break because all of our best players are going to play 3, not 2 internationals. And yet we've come back from that international break playing far better. We are now, that Leeds draw now puts us at the same pace as we were at in Project Restart. Instead of drawing the first game, we've now won all these games for everything. But I just want to bring up this comment from Mimic, who says, play the U23s. Shut up, and that's a dumb idea. No team does that. And you would destroy your own club if you did that. First of all, the U23s are like 17. They are not ready. They're not ready to do that.
U23s are very young. Yeah,
they are not ready to do that. And if you went into the dressing room and looked at Pogba and Cavani and Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford and said, we're not playing, you guys aren't playing, we're going to let the kids play, they would piss right off, and you'd struggle to sign anybody, because you come to Manchester United not to win the league. You come to win trophies. And the only way to win trophies is to win the cups.
Yeah.
And that's what all those players want to do. All right. Bruno Fernandes was playing at Sporting, and he was playing in the Portuguese Cup, the Portuguese League Cup, all of them.
Yeah, I think Mimic's baiting you here, mate, because now he's suggesting the under-12s maybe, Paulie. Look, we're all for the banter on here. It's all good, Paulie. But now, look, I just want to bring it on to a more positive and sort of lighter note, Paulie. Look, this ESL, look, this time last week, Paulie, we were doing this show and it was all doom and gloom. People really need to think about when they break news, Paulie, because we literally got off of this show.
Like 45 minutes later.
Yeah. I couldn't believe the time. By the time I'd gone through to the living room after doing the show, the news was on my television and my friend was telling me about it. I couldn't believe the timing of it all, Paulie. But look, since then there's been, and I don't want to talk about the ESL and how it broke down and everything, because that's a whole show on its own, Paulie. But there is going to have to be change now, because we know, Paulie, that these people, they're going to come back with something else, aren't they? I don't think that this is their final bargaining chip. There has to be a change in maybe the way that we allow these owners to run football, the way that we allow them to have the power to just spring this on us the way that they did last week. And let's just take one of the things that's being suggested, Paulie. It's around this 50+1. So it's this fan ownership of their football club, this sort of fan involvement in their football club. Now, I originally, and still am to some extent, a fan of this, but I've listened to people talk on this, and I think it's almost impossible to sort of change the game to an extent where that can even become a thing, because of where we are with our own clubs in England. It's almost become irreversible. You would have to nationalise the whole game. The governance of the game would have to change radically. It's just not possible. But there are other things that we can do that we could maybe chat about in a bit, Paul. But first of all, I know that you've got some thoughts on this 50+1 and how it sort of works in Germany, and is that a reflection on whether it's possible to work in England?
Yeah, well, the question is, does it work?
Yeah.
And does it work in general? Everybody points to Bayern as the club. Look at Bayern. Look at Bayern. Bayern are the exception to the 50+1 rule. They are not the outcome of the 50+1 rule. And the question is, what are you trying to establish with this rule? Or the fans that are fighting for this, are you trying to say we want football to go back to being, because remember what the response to the Super League was, you want to be able to dream and anybody should be able to do it. And West Ham, Leicester, you want those teams to have their chance. Is that what you want with the 50+1 rule, or what you're trying to get is don't let somebody come in, buy the club, and then start a Super League? Because if it's the former, if you're just trying to get a competitive ballpark and everything for everybody to play completely, that ship sailed, and all the 50+1 rule would do is make it ironclad. Now this is your top six. You've got United, you've got City, you've got Chelsea, you've got Arsenal, you've got Tottenham, maybe you've got Leicester, and everybody else has no chance, because they'll never. These teams have already established themselves as the giants that they are, and the 50+1 rule will allow them to keep collecting money, and no one will ever catch up to them. Now, granted, the current system is basically like that too, but that's because of the Champions League money and everything else. But no, this is a great point from Mimic, is Bayern run the Bundesliga because they already had that advantage when the 50+1 rule was put in, and all it took, and they were just idiots when for the first decade and swung and missed on a lot of signings. But now they've gotten their ship right. But the Bundesliga financially is not in a good place. Most clubs aren't good. Borussia Dortmund have done wonders to make themselves a commercial giant, and they are by far and away the second biggest team in Germany. They are peanuts compared to Bayern. Borussia Dortmund still need to sell their players in order to really sustain their model. Bayern can just poach everybody because everybody else in the Bundesliga needs money. You can't have, technically, the 50+1 rule does allow for a Sheikh Mansour to come in, buy up 49.9% of your shares and pump money into the team. But no investor wants to do that if they don't have control.
And I think that's the thing, Pauly, I just want to say on that as well is that basically the Bundesliga has just become an auditioning stage for everyone to go to Bayern. Like you're seeing like Nagelsmann doing what he's done with RB Leipzig, the only team to really push Bayern in the last couple of seasons. The only thing that served to do is show that he's the next manager for Bayern Munich, hasn't it? You know what I mean? It's not come at the detriment to Bayern or anything like that. It's same with Lewandowski doing what he did at Dortmund, and other players that poach Hummels from Dortmund. It's just the auditioning stage for them to show that they can play for Bayern, and they know that if they're going to play for a German club that can win the European Cup, realistically, Bayern's the only team that can do that.
Yeah, and this comment from Aditya, hypothetically, wouldn't United be the perfect club for a 50+1 model, considering we're basically financially self-sustaining anyway? Hypothetically, yes, but that's because we've already built this. So hypothetically, if we switch to 50+1 now, United would be fine, but that would just, it would keep them where they are, and it would keep West Ham where they are. It wouldn't create the openness that everybody thinks it would. The Bundesliga is open in terms of basically anybody's got a shot at finishing 2nd through 18th because nobody's got money besides Bayern. Like you said, it's an auditioning stage for Bayern because most of their clubs are just not financially where they need to be. And part of that is just the German culture and their TV contracts, etc. But nobody can raise, even RB Leipzig, who have circumvented this model. They have the big takeover. They have the big backing. They had to sell Timo Werner last year, and they had to sell Dayot Upamecano this year. They are easily, when it comes to the financial backing, they probably are the second richest club in Germany, and they still need to sell all their players. And now their coach, and their coach and center back are off to
22 million for a football manager, Paulie. I mean, that's it's quite a fee, isn't it, that they're demanding?
Yeah, it's also, let's not forget this. Everybody is saying, well, the German clubs were out because of the 50+1 model kept them out. It did not. Bayern Munich put out a statement that basically they just read the room correctly. They said, whoa, there's going to be a lot of backlash. We can look like the good guys. But because they put out a statement that said, we do not support the Super League. What we do support is, and they listed everything that the Super League wanted. We want a wage control. We want this. We want that. Notice how they want wage control in Europe, but not in Germany. Because they can't compete with Real Madrid when Real Madrid are at their best, and with City and with PSG. They can't. They don't make enough money to do that. But
they're speaking from a place of power as well, Paulie. They're not going to win it this year, but they won it last year, didn't they, Paulie? So they know in the current state that they can win this, that they can compete in Europe without.
As long as Lewandowski is fit. Like I tweeted after they lost to PSG, and I said I have Bayern Munich takes, but I was going to be quiet about it. The Bundesliga is going to become a lot more competitive when Lewandowski retires. He is carrying that Bayern team right now because they are able to take a lot of chances on players like Kingsley Coman and Coutinho, players that were supposed to be really good that are merely just good. They could cover that up when you have Lewandowski, but when you take Lewandowski out and you go, oh, you guys need to now be amazing and carry the team, they can't do that. And
problem will be if they manage to sneak in for Haaland. A lot of people are saying
they can't. They don't have the money. They don't have money. That's why they want wage control. But they read the room correctly.
Next year, though, Paulie, do you think if when that release clause comes in, could he become an option for Bayern then at 70 odd million?
No, Bayern don't spend on transfer fees. They spend on players. They spend on wages,
Okay.
which is why you see them take all these players who like get these big moves, the James Rodriguez, the Kingsley Comans, and take a while to settle in. Bayern takes them off your hands on loan, the Coutinhos, and say, yeah, come here. We'll pay your wages. We're not paying a fee for you though. They spend on wages, not fees. So I don't see Holland going.
Didn't they not pay? They paid 70 million for Sane though, did they?
They paid 50 million.
Yeah.
They just, I believe they also just sold. That was an interesting one, but also he's young. He's German. He fit a lot of profiles.
He hasn't been great either, Paulie.
No.
So maybe if they were thinking of changing to maybe pay, they might be put off after that deal, to be fair, because he hasn't been great, has he?
Right. When everybody says Bayern are such a well-run club, they are. But this is why, because they are smart about things. And this is why I said, don't even think about signing Thiago. Don't sign David Alaba, because Bayern Munich don't let players go if they're good. They let players go when they go, you aren't going to be as good as you were anymore. And we need to get better than you. And if you have an injury history, as players typically do, but if Bayern are letting you go, they know. And it was David Alaba left because of money. Yeah, because he wanted to continue to be paid a lot of money. And Bayern said, well, you're 29, so you're not going to be as good the next 5 years you were the last 5 years. So they weren't going to pay him like as if he was 27. And he said, well, someone else will. And they went, you're right, somebody else will, but they're not going to get the same player. And yes, we're getting comments. Bayern, it's not that they don't spend fees. They are not going to get spending the crazy fees that City, United, Chelsea pay. They will spend on fees, but their budget, the substantial amount of their budget is reserved for wages, not for fees.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is,
they let Barcelona spend 150 million on Coutinho, and then they got him on loan.
Yes,
and he helped them be. He had a good season for them, and that's a really clever thing to do, isn't it?
Exactly. And to sum it all up, though, the 50+1 rule is not what kept these clubs out, because here's what the 50+1 rule does. It gives the fans voting rights. That's not up for debate. The Super League was not up for debate. We know Bayern didn't put this in front of their fans and club members, because then we would have heard about it. We would have been like, oh, Super League's happening on Sunday. No. You live in the United Kingdom. I live in the United States. They are democracies. When they go to pass legislation, do they ask us? Do we get a vote in the new law? No, we elect someone who votes on our behalf. And that is what Bayern Munich is. They elect a president to operate on behalf, but he has control. He gets to make the decisions. Fans don't get
Real Madrid and Barcelona do in a funny sort of way as well, don't they, Paulie?
Real Madrid and Barcelona the same thing. Yeah. It is not when they go, hey, we're going to spend 50 million for Leroy Sané. Does the club does the members give us the approval? No, they operate on that. The only thing you could do is vote them out because you don't like their decisions. If they said we're going into the Super League and you go, wow, that ruins football for me, that's a decision that I can't live with. You vote them out of your club, but at that point, Bayern are already in the Super League. So if you put in the 50+1 rule, all you're going to do is maintain the status quo here, while also you're not getting the ability to block a Super League, because we'll vote out our president, but the president's already made that call. You don't get voting rights in that. You get voting rights in who operates on your behalf, because look, Florentino Perez can be voted out, and he's the mastermind behind this whole thing.
Yeah. Paulie, so then, look, we've just spent a few minutes here. We're getting towards the end, so we do need to wrap up. But we've shot down this 50+1 model. What is the way around it, Paulie? Because I've heard people suggest maybe fan representation on the board. Do you think do you see that that's a goer, maybe having one or two fans on a board? Whether when it comes to voting, they have much say, I'm not quite sure on things, but there clearly has to be something here, Paulie, because look, our mood wasn't very good last Tuesday, and the whole news that broke the weekend before about that this could happen, it really felt like, Gary Neville's used some strong words, but suggesting like an attempted murder on football. I think, although it's very strong, you could see where he was going with that, especially as an owner of a club further down in the pyramid of English football. We have to change something here, Paulie. So, I know I'm putting you on the spot and there's probably no short answer, but What do you think? How do you change this moving forward, and how do you get something like the 50+1 model, but isn't the 50+1 model, but is a change from what we've got at the moment? Because I don't want to get 2 or 3 seasons down the line, Paulie, and then something else like this happen again, because those days between Sunday and Tuesday, that time wasn't a very nice time to be a football fan.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. It's a great comment by Manesh. We aren't competent enough as fans to really have this.
Yeah,
you are 100% right. And someone told me last week, United would never vote for a person like Perez or something. We'd vote in like a Van der Sar or a Fletcher. Yeah, what happens in 5 years when they're not successful? What happens if we're not winning? They'll be voted out, and we'll bring in somebody else who runs a campaign and promises, I'll sign Haaland and I'll sign the next Pogba. That's exactly how it always becomes politics. So I don't know what the best scenario is. It's like the saying, democracy is the worst form of government. It's just better than the other ones. And that might be the case with what we have. Look, fan power is what has put Real Madrid and Barcelona into their financial messes, because once people get power, they don't want to lose it. And to run your elections when fans are demanding, we got to sign this player. Barcelona built a team based on their academy. Pedro, Puyol, Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, Piqué, they all came from the academy. They didn't spend a lot on signing new players. And when that team rose to the pinnacle, they were no longer the number 2 in Spain. They were the ones that went toe-to-toe with Real Madrid every year. Yeah. And whoever was president, if you were the one that allowed them to now go back to being number 2, that was bad. So every president then said, when that team was coming to its end, they said, we got to spend to keep it up. And they spent money that they just didn't have, because I'm going to get voted out of office. The fan power is what leads to this arms race. So I don't think fan power is the answer. Billionaire owners is going to give you the money and everything. But yet, look, fan representation on the board. What are you going to get? 2 or 3 votes? Yeah, the Glazers are always going to have 51%. It's going to be like that scene at the end of the movie, Mr. Deeds, where he goes, I own 51. He goes, so I vote yes 51 times. That's what's going to happen. And there was this great article in The Athletic this morning or yesterday about how people think it's going to cause, this whole thing is going to cause the Glazers and the Kroenkes and Fenway to cash out. And it's just not. And they don't, look, the Glazers don't go to games. They don't go on social media. Like you can yell all you want. They don't hear it and they don't care. They laugh all their way to the bank. Oh, wow. You're yelling Glazers out in that new United shirt you just bought. Yeah, and you're hanging a banner in the ticket that you paid for, which goes to, so they're laughing all the way to the bank. And one of the things that this article highlighted was fans are just hoping for this billionaire owner to take over and be better than the last billionaire. And what are the odds that that's going to happen? None.
Anybody who's got the kind of money to buy United, Paulie, are going to be like the Glazers. They're going to want more money somewhere down the line, aren't they? They're only going to have the same intent.
They said at this point, it's only the top 50 people in the world can afford Manchester United. And that's the problem. Yeah, you have to buy the debt. It literally would cost $4 billion. I put it this way. The New York Mets just got a new owner this year. And his net worth is $14 billion.
Yeah.
And he is by far and away the richest owner in baseball now. And we all walk the walk. We're like, we got this guy and he's willing to spend money. And he's been great so far. 4 billion pounds would equal about 5 point something billion. That's 40% of this guy's net worth. You would never spend 40% of your net worth on a football club. That's a terrible investment. So like they are too big to be bought.
Yeah, and I mean, people talking about baseball say, be careful what you wish for, guys, because all your games are going on to Amazon if that's the case, I reckon. And then you're going to be talking
every employee at the club will be treated like shit.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Paulie, we're going to wrap up now because, like I say, we've gone over our happy hours. So we give people 4 minutes there. And I just want to finish off by saying, look, fans have shown their power this week, and they have, and that's brilliant. And, this is an idea that's getting taken down. But let's not forget, owners as well in football clubs have brought a lot to this league over the years. Without owners, this league wouldn't be what it is now. We wouldn't have, the players that we have in the league. We wouldn't have to be able to attract the managers that we had. And you look at clubs like Leicester, fantastic example there of an owner that does things the right way and was able to achieve a dream. So let's not make out that having ownership, from outside is all bad. It's played its part in making the league what it is today.
And you can run your fit and proper persons test. You could do all that, but there's nothing to stop an owner from being Stan Kroenke. There's nothing to stop a sparkling clean person from coming in and then looking at somebody and being like, "You want me to pay 90 million pounds just so I can pay 100 million to the player? So it's going to cost me 100." That's a terrible investment.
And you want me to put all my money in so that you can make the decisions at the football club? It's just not going to happen, is it?
Look at the history of football in England. Look down in the lower leagues and how the chairman, it was always just, a fan from the town who made a lot of money and he bought it out of love of the club. And how many times do they run the club into administration? How many times do they bankrupt themselves because they just can't? It's just too expensive and it's unsustainable.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, Pauly, like I say, thank you ever so much for doing this with me today. Thank you for your time. Thank you to all of you that got involved. We had some fantastic comments, some great interaction, and some brilliant banter today. I thought it was good, Pauly. We don't normally. When we started doing the show, I was hoping we'd get a lot of comments that would sort of, make you raise your eyebrows. But the under-23s one from Mimic today was absolutely brilliant. So, no, thank you ever so much, guys, for getting involved. We won't be with you on Thursday because, of course, United have got their massive Europa League tie against Roma, a semi-final, not another one we could afford to lose. So we won't be with you on Thursday, but we'll be back with you next Tuesday after the massive United-Liverpool game, where we will see you for United Happy Hour. Until then, guys, take care. Have a great